Hello ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to my in-depth analysis for Star Wars Jedi Fallen Order. We will be discussing presentation, gameplay, the story in more or less its entirety, and some other miscellaneous things. Easily one of the best moments in this game is its opening. Not counting the time it takes for you to go through all the menus and start your journey, it takes 1 minute and 40 seconds and you're playing the game that you paid for. There is no cutscene at the start spewing exposition at you, which really adds to the mystery, and probably the most oh thank fuck moment is when you realize that the game does not stop even for a fraction of a second to explain to you what each of the buttons do. Granted, this game will display button prompts or even text prompts in certain situations, but they're done in a good and non-intrusive way. So, great and quick opening and a beautiful tutorial. Both these elements combined really make the opening enjoyable and lets you focus on amazing performances, both visually and very nicely done dialogue and voice acting with great cinematography and well-designed set pieces. You may think I'm overselling how well the characters look and act, but let me tell you, after watching the behind-the-scenes documentary of this game, and especially the parts where the actors were shown with all the motion capture devices on their face and bodies, it really makes you appreciate how difficult it is to actually deliver such a well-done performance with all that shit in your face. You know, to make scenes that are emotional and powerful between two people while you look like a failed Photoshop preset. It really a special praise, at least for me, goes to Cameron Monaghan, who plays Cal Kestis, Tina Ivlev portraying Night Sister Merin, and wait, what's her name again?
Laure Rétif.
Oh my god. For animating BD-1, who is hands down the single best droid in the Star Wars universe. Once we start the opening section proper, we are introduced to the combat mechanics. At first, with its lock-on feature, strafing, dodging, and parrying feels extremely similar to Dark Souls. However, after some time with this system, you realize it's more like Sekiro. And the good thing is that it's not just a blatant copy of Souls-like games with a Star Wars paint job over it. It uses those games as a template on which it adds its own stuff. You can quick combo, slow overhead combo, lightsaber throw, jump attack, block, parry, dodge, roll, jump, force, push, pull, and slow. The downside is that if you're playing on higher difficulties, you will quickly notice how extremely broken being on the defensive actually is. Most of the enemies have a stamina meter which makes them block all damage. Once it's depleted, you can come in for an attack and take some of their health away. On lower difficulties, you can spam your way through the stamina and kill them fairly quickly, but the higher up on the difficulty setting you are, the less proactive you become, and being reactive comes into play, which sadly just means standing in place, waiting for the perfect time to parry, and counterattack when you can. Keeping that in mind, you don't have to play like that, but it's still a bit of an issue. However, it doesn't take away from the enjoyment. When it comes to describing the overall experience of Jedi Fallen Order and the type of game that it is, the best way to describe it is that it draws a lot of inspiration from a number of other games. You pick a level, explore it, collect everything you can, and realize that there are some areas that are blocked off, giving you the hint that you can come back at a later date once you acquire a certain skill or object, which heavily reminds me of Crash Bandicoot. Combat and most boss battles are Souls-like based, and the core gameplay, you losing experience when you die, only getting it back if you manage to hit the enemy that killed you, and the way that health and healing is implemented. The fight with the bat on Dathomir closely resembles God of War, focusing more on spectacle rather than core gameplay, and there are many, many beautiful set pieces that look like something you would see in the Uncharted series. On paper, this might sound confusing, but in theory it actually blends in nicely. Exploring the planets can get truly mesmerizing as you run, jump, wall run, climb, swing on vines and ropes, solve puzzles, use force powers, and have BD-1 help you unlock new areas. The main focus of all of that is to find all the collectibles. Chests that offered cosmetic pieces and recolors of your lightsaber, poncho, outfit, your ship the Mantis, and BD-1. Force echoes through which Cal can see history of a certain item or a living being, seeds that you can plant on your ship, life and force upgrades, and scans that BD-1 can make of new types of defeated enemies or anything he finds interesting in the environment. The thing that really needs to be commended are the level designers. While all the areas on each planet are extremely beautiful, the more interesting thing is that they are all connected by discovering shortcuts. Someone in the dev team really enjoyed Dark Souls 1 and deserves a raise. However, I will put that raise to question right away. During your exploration, you will find meditation circles which function the same way as bonfires do in Dark Souls. While you're meditating, you can spend skill points you earn from experience to unlock new abilities and empower existing ones, and refill your health and stim packs, which will in turn respawn all the enemies in the area. There are two problems that I have with this. First being that these are your only save spots. Unlike Dark Souls, this game does not constantly save your progress with each step you take. So you better pray that your system does not crash in any way or you encounter a bug that will force you to restart the game. Thankfully, it only happened once to me in my 30 plus hours, but it did happen. My major gripe with this, however, is that there is no way to fast travel from one meditation spot to another. There are instances in the Star Wars universe where teleportation is used, but since they're not present in the movies, I can see why you wouldn't use teleportation in the literal sense, which would confuse your average Star Wars fan. Or better yet, since Star Wars takes place in a long time ago in a galaxy far, far away, this method of transportation is far too futuristic. However, there are many ways to contextualize it differently. Having Cal stand up as you exit the meditation screen and having him walk off screen while it fades to black, and then fade in a shot of him walking to your desired meditation spot would contextualize passage of time. While these areas are not extremely huge, I still feel the need to at least give you one or two spots that you can return to at any time on each of the maps. This is the bug that I mentioned earlier which forced me to restart the game and lose about an hour's worth of progress. I was in an elevator and I opened up the menu. After I closed it, I fell through the map and kept falling until I hit the death trigger. After I hit it, it spawned me back into the void which I could not escape from. I tried replicating it again and thankfully it was a one-off thing. Look, I don't know why, but I have this uncanny ability to break games. Most of the time it's funny, and only in some situations is it actually to my detriment. I managed to clip through the wall again at some point, but this time I just had to trigger the fall damage a couple times to spawn back. There were some small, barely noticeable missing textures, and some instances of BD1 scanning absolutely nothing due to the enemy that fell off beyond reach, but BD decided it was close enough, so it just looked a bit stupid. And there was an instance of me just fucking around trying to reach places I normally shouldn't just by jumping, and once it did work, effectively skipping a few platforming sections, and once that it didn't work, making the game freeze me in place. I have to mention that these are not technically bugs, but just me being an idiot.
All around me are familiar faces, worn out.
My dislike towards underwater swimming sections aside, due to my fear of deep waters, Jedi Fallen Order thankfully does not force too much of them. And the controls are not as bad as most games that include them. One thing though that does strike me as odd in these underwater exploration sections are the chests, or rather the act of opening them. Every time you encounter one in the world, BD1 jumps in, rumbles around a little bit, and jumps out with whatever item of importance is inside. The underwater ones do not act like those. You open them, they rumble around on their own, and you get an item. I don't know if they forgot animating BD1 in these cases, or someone mentioned to the team that it was a little retarded that a droid or a machine could survive underwater for so long without frying some of its core, and they agreed, but forgot to implement, or in this case, remove certain segments. This is just a little bit of a nitpick, nothing too serious. The story of Jedi Fallen Order takes a fairly simple and safe route, which honestly for Star Wars is a step in the right direction at this point. Force Awakens and The Last Jedi shat all over the lore, consistency, and its own plot, and for some odd reason I don't think Rise of Skywalker is going to do any better. But that's a story for another day. We open up on the planet Bracca, where we meet Cal, our main protagonist, and his friend and colleague Prauf. They're working as engineers and scavengers, scrapping the ships from the Clone Wars. After some faulty wiring and a lovely set piece, Cal uses his force powers to save Prauf's life. This is the first time both we as the audience and Prauf learn that Cal is a Jedi. Prouf reacts with wonder and excitement, but Cal quickly tells him to keep his voice down as he wants to keep it a secret. This game never fails to convey any kind of emotion of a bond between two characters. Even though we just met these two, their body language and acting is so well choreographed and animated that just a simple, gentle hand-on-face gesture makes a click in our mind that they are friends and care for each other. I am pushing this so much because even though Cal risked revealing his biggest secret, this simple act between the two meant more, at least for me. After a short talk, Cal decides it will be best to try and escape Braca, no doubt because of his fear of being discovered as a Jedi and possibly hunted down and killed. Exhaustion kicks in and he rests his eyes for a moment before entering a dreamlike sequence where he meets his former master Jaro Tapal, who is a Lasat, a species not very often included in mainstream Star Wars media, so that's pretty cool. We're not allowed to spend too much time on this since the train stopped due to formally a contraband inspection, but informally an Empire Scout droid has recorded Cal using his force powers to save Prouf, and the Empire is here to eradicate the problem. This is where we're introduced to our main opposing force, the Inquisitors, more specifically the 2nd and 9th Sisters, the former of which is the main antagonist and the latter jumps in later as a boss fight. After a tense lineup scene, Prouf stands up trying to delay the situation, upon which he's killed, prompting Cal to attack the 2nd sister and revealing fully to everyone that he is in fact a Jedi. At this point we're being introduced to the game's mechanics proper and are treated to some set pieces. Upon completing this section, the 2nd sister pushes our shit in pretty badly, but thankfully we are saved by Seer, another former Jedi who cut herself away from the Force, and the captain Grease. After some exposition, we are told that our next course of action towards rebuilding the Jedi Order would be to go to Bogano, to an ancient vault in hopes we can access it. After arriving to Bogano, we meet BD-1, who is one of the best done companions in video games. He doesn't block you or stand in your way, he doesn't yell out redundant shit every 2 seconds, and literally everything he does is just so adorable.
Good catch, BD. This is really gonna help us.
Sadly, he busts his little leg, and after Cal fixes it, BD mentions something about a vault.
The vault? Yeah, that's where I was headed to. Okay.
And that's our cue that he will play a major role, at least for now. Upon reaching the vault, BD shows us a recording of his former keeper, Eno Cordova, played by Tony Amendola. Fans of Dexter will recognize him right away. He mentions the vault was built by a long-lost civilization known as the Zepho, and that within he placed a holocron which contains a list of all Force-sensitive children. However, before we obtain it, we have to pass tests to prove our worth to Cordova. After this, we're treated to an extremely well-done emotional scene.
I guess you were the someone I was supposed to meet. You know, I've been alone for a while now. Without any purpose, just hiding. There's no way to live. Not for a Jedi. Or a droid. Maybe Seer was right. Maybe we're done hiding. Hey. You want to meet some, friends of mine?
Before heading back to our ship, we trigger yet another one of Cordova's recordings, giving us some information about the Zepho interested in something on Dathomir. We explain to our crew what we learned, and after a tie-in with the timeline and the overarching plot...
This is Master Obi-Wan Kenobi. I regret to report that both our Jedi Order and the Republic have fallen.
We got some more exposition, and we're given a choice of going to to the Zepho homeworld or Dathomir. There are both good and bad things with this freedom of choice. Even though the game pushes Zepho as the correct path, nothing is stopping you from going to Dathomir first, which is what I did, only to discover that you cannot complete 80% of it because you do not possess all the skills needed to maneuver around. It's good because it doesn't force you down a linear path, but due to lack of any kind of fast travel, you have to backtrack to your ship and then come back and do the same thing when you get more power-ups.
Again, I love repetition!
However, it's really not a big deal since the environments are so beautiful and it really doesn't take too much of your time to backtrack. Seeing as how Zepho is our next best choice, we head there, specifically to the Tomb of Ilram. After completing some puzzles and acquiring new force powers, Cordova mentions the planet Kashyyyk, and more importantly Chieftain Tarful, who is as of that moment our primary objective. We return to our ship and inform our crew of our findings once again, upon which we have a talk with Seer, who gives us a bit of her backstory, mostly on what happened during and after the Purge. She got caught trying to protect her Padawan Trilla and the younglings in her care. She explains how she was tortured and eventually escaped custody due to a prison riot. The conversation flows naturally and it doesn't feel forced or rushed to explain backstory. It all starts with a, "Hey, how are you holding up?" and evolves from that, which really feels natural. After that, we make our way to Kashyyyk, which is under Empire siege. We manage to evade the blockade and jump into the River of Origins, in which we can swim around for a minute until it turns into a nice set piece of hijacking an AT-AT. The wow factor really sets in once you realize that you can actually drive the fucking thing and mow down Empire troops. The good thing about this section, and others like this, is that they're not dragged on forever. It's cool, makes its point, and stops before it gets redundant, allowing you to enjoy it during gameplay and in memories afterwards. As we're approaching the Resistance, the ground underneath us shakes, and around us the Forest Whitakers, as we're greeted by Saw. You know, the guy from Rogue One. We agree to help him free the Wookiees in order to see if someone there might know where we can locate Tarful. And then all of a sudden, fucking spiders. They're actually not too bad if you get the parry down right. Anyways, we free the Wookiees and Seer tells us that she's intercepted some of the Empire communications and that they found a tomb on Zepho. So, we're going back there. We scour the Imperial dig site and meet up with the second sister once more. She pushes our shit in again, and with the help of BD-1, we manage to keep her away from arm's reach. She takes off her mask and reveals to us that she's actually Trilla, Seer's former Padawan.
If it wasn't for her, she betrayed me.
You were Trilla.
In the flesh.
I won't let you manipulate me.
So sure are you? When faced with a choice to protect herself or her Padawan, she chose self-interest. She'll sell you out too.
Well, I can handle myself.
Can you afford to take that chance? Your new master harbors great darkness. The look on her face when she saw what they had done to me, as I am now. She turned, exposing her true nature. She used the dark side.
She cut herself off from the Force.
Oh? How long before she cracks and betrays you too? Is that who you want beside you when you find the holocron? What would Jaro Tapal say?
You have no right to mention his name.
I wonder, what would he think if he could see his Padawan now, skulking in the shadows with a betrayer, granting her access to a legion of impressionable students?
No, I won't let anyone touch them.
I thought the same thing once.
This is a pretty good scene, however, the way it was presented, I had a feeling that at some point the game would offer you a choice of whether or not you will join the dark side, or other choices on how you deal with Seer, but that doesn't happen. And at first I was a little bit disappointed, but I realized it's actually a good thing, since this game really doesn't break any lore or retcon shit that wasn't there. so having you do a choose-your-own-adventure type here wouldn't really work in the long run. The Tomb of Mictril is our next destination. More interesting puzzles, new mechanics, new force powers which are presented to you in an interesting way. I didn't mention this before and I think now is a good time. Cal explains to Cere early on in the story that ever since the Jedi Purge he felt unstable and disconnected from the Force. No doubt since he repressed all those bad memories and with them some of his Jedi training. As you advanced in the story, he starts to regain his memories, taking you back into his mind when he was younger to teach you new Force powers. After some more puzzles and platforming, we trigger BD's recordings again, through which we find about an object called the Zepho Astrium. So we make our way back to our ship, however this time we encounter a mini-boss called Chunk, who once at about half health incapacitates you and knocks you the fuck out.
BD!
Waking up at a prison cell without BD1 and your lightsaber is one of the more terrifying sequences in this game. There are some locked doors that BD could easily open and caged creatures that would, if freed, devour you in an instant. It really makes you realize how dependent you are on BD1 and your lightsaber. I just wish that the game made these sections extremely difficult to further emphasize that point of disorientation and helplessness without your companion and your weapon. But this is what we get instead. Some puzzles after which you get BD1 back, and an arena type sequence in which they give you your lightsaber. What the point of all of this was, I honestly couldn't tell you. After Grease crashes in and we have a chat with him, he really doesn't explain how all this came to be. Probably in the sequel. But anyways, we tell Cere about Trilla, then something tension, right as we get a message telling us where to find Tarful, and that Saw pretty much fucked off. We have a heart-to-heart with Grease, and we're on our merry way back to Kashyyyk, on which are more fucking jump-scare spiders. Thank you. We managed to find Tarful, who tells us we should head up the origin tree. It has combat elements and beautiful set pieces. As we're nearing the top, we help our bird buddy by removing a piece of the Ninth Sister's ship stuck in his body, and he takes us on a ride to the top, upon which we're treated to yet another one of BD's recordings of Cordova, who tells us that he found an astrium here, and that there was no need to search for the one within Kujet's tomb on Dathomir. And since he got this one, we have to go back to Kujet. But not before a boss fight with the Ninth Sister.
Wallop, the hand goes off.
Depending on whether or not this is your first time to Dathomir won't matter much, but let's say that it is. In which case, this will be your first encounter with Night Sister Merin, played by Tina Ivlev, who is my favorite and criminally underused in this game. Also, on the way to the temple, you'll be greeted by a man in a ragged old cloak who says some interesting things. Anyways, due to some bad luck, we end up fighting one of the game's more interesting bosses, Gorgara. Fighting him here is fairly straightforward, albeit pretty terrifying, especially due to his entrance. After we slash him enough times, he flies away with a sliver of health, giving us a pretty good indicator that we will be seeing him again. And we do, very soon in fact. I guess it wouldn't hurt if it was spaced out a bit more, but nevertheless the second phase of his fight is really God of War-esque, focusing more on spectacle and cool visuals than actual game mechanics that you learned along the way. All in all, visually striking, impactful, but very easy. We reach the tomb, but the door won't budge. Only after, upon exiting a meditation spot right in front of the door, we will trigger another dreamlike state, bringing us back to Cal's younger days. After some platforming, we meet with Jaro Tapal, right at the time where the announcement of Order 66 is being made. More platforming happens, and we see that Jaro died trying to defend Cal, an event he blames himself for since he lost his lightsaber earlier in the sequence, which is probably what caused all the repressed memories since it was a pretty traumatic experience for a kid. After quote-unquote waking up from the meditation, we enter another dreamlike state, but this one is more dark and broody, almost void-like.
It is time for instruction. Yes, my blood is on your hands, apprentice. You are a failure, a weakling, A traitor! You are no Jedi! No!
Yeah, so he breaks the crystal part of his lightsaber? I'm not saying that Cal's not physically strong or that he probably used the Force in some way to give his squeeze more oomph, but I'm not really buying it. I don't think lightsabers should break that easily, especially the most important damn part, but whatever, we gotta move the plot along. So we exit the temple and meet up with Raggedy Man again.
It's not go as planned. We can't say I didn't warn you.
Leave me alone.
Leave you alone, lost, and defenseless in this dangerous place. Never.
Okay, enough of this. Who are you really?
How very inappropriate, thank you.
Malicos. A former Jedi, like yourself. We have much in common.
I doubt that.
Oh? We both survived the Purge. My troops betrayed me. I was forced to strike them down, and I escaped to this desolate place. To the darkness here. It almost took me. But I conquered it.
You're the one the Knight Brothers follow.
Yes. Well, these savages only respect strength. And as we both know, the Force is a most powerful ally.
No, you used the Force to seize power. That's everything the Jedi stood against.
These are dark times. They will consume us if we do not stand with each other.
I don't need your help.
That broken lightsaber tells a different tale. You saw something in there, didn't you? Something terrible. There are many such places here in Dathomir. Join my family, and I can teach you how to control its power.
Join my family, and I will teach you to control the power. Familiar words, Malicos.
Sister Merrin, you overstep your bounds.
For years, you said the Jedi orchestrated the massacre that killed my sisters. Yet here one stands, and you seek only to bring him into your family.
You were told to deal with it. Clearly you lack the power, little witch.
Power. You are mad, Malicos. Dathomir has unmade you, and my misplaced loyalty has allowed you to lead the Knight Brothers astray. Unlike the Jedi, the Night Sisters of Dathomir do not turn on their kind. Our bond is eternal.
Your sisters are dead.
Yes, their graves are all around you.
Time to go.
Foolish girl! This power is beyond your control!
You both shall learn. When you face one Night Sister of Dathomir, you face us all!
Okay, great scene, but here's my problem with it. How the hell can't both Cal and Malicos sense Medin standing there? Magic that the Night Sisters use is a form of shadow magic that is connected to the dark side of the Force. In other words, why would Malicos quote-unquote expose himself to Medin? I can understand Cal not saying anything because it's none of his fucking business, but Malicos? I know Medin used her powers to make herself invisible, but that's still a force power, albeit a dark side force power, but force nonetheless. If anyone has an explanation for this one, I'll gladly listen. Right, so we beeline it for our ship, and we get another pretty emotional scene. You know, now that I rewatch these, I know that the bright pink poncho doesn't really help sell the gravity of these scenes, but hey, it's my favorite color, just go with it. Alright, so we wipe our tears away and go to Ilum, in hopes of constructing a new lightsaber. We are faced with even more puzzles, and something that I need to commend the devs for. As we advance forward, we need to go through a swimming section. My first thought when I jumped in the water was, how the hell didn't he freeze to death? There was barely any reaction to jumping in water that is on an ice planet. I'd imagine it being quite cold. However, I was immediately made an idiot because the devs actually had attention to detail high on the list. There are geysers making the water warm. Cal even mentions later that while swimming the temperature is good, but as soon as he gets out, the temperature change makes him shiver. A very nice touch. And then a not very nice touch happens a little later on when you get to this path thing. Turns out you can't go through it. Let me tell you, there are many times in this game that Cal and BD can squeeze through very tight spots and crawl their way through them. Now this is a pet peeve of mine in video games in general. If you can't go somewhere or stand on something, that make it look like you can't. Invisible walls are not fun and are extremely immersion breaking. Hey, remember this? So instead of just, climbing over it, our genius over here sets out and kills the 4 most powerful beings ever in existence. Well, it's not that bad, but you get the point. Anyways, as we get near the crystal, the screen fades to white, and we see Cal's younger self offering him a hand as he says, "Trust me," and pulls him up. I may be looking too much into this scene, but I think it's his own subconscious telling him that what happened to his master was not his fault, and he shouldn't blame his younger self for things he didn't cause. Probably a bit of a stretch, but scenes like this are really up to your own interpretation.
He failed. Failure's not the end, my friend.
That's good. That's good, boy.
The time's come. This may be the last you see of me. I can sense the doom of the Jedi Order is upon us. No! Failure's not the end. It is a necessary part of the path. Hope will always survive in those who continue to fight. Like you, BD-1. I believe you will find someone just as brave and persistent as you have been. And you will help them, as you have helped me. But your memory will be completely lost. Are you sure you want to do this? Beginning total memory encryption. Only with a trusted connection will your memories be restored. I believe in you, as I always have. And I believe in whom you choose to replace me. Goodbye, old friend.
memories. You risked them for me.
I'm not gonna lie, this was one of the more powerful scenes, and I honestly never thought a robot would get such an emotional reaction from me. But it has some problems and setbacks from making it the best goddamn scene ever, and I'm pissed off because they are so stupid. First of all, how in God's name does BD1 have third-person recordings or memories, whatever, of his own conversation? It's especially jarring and out of place when all the other ones weren't, and also there's a scene later on in the game where memories are displayed in first person, making them immersive. I hate it when movies and games do that. If you want to show memories of someone, show them in the point of view. Literally in this case, use their eyeballs. And another thing, the whole memory will come back. I get it why Cordova wanted BD's memories gone, in case he got captured or someone non-worthy found him, but how did he erase, or not erase, but lock away his memory with these conditions then? I don't think he used the Force for this, because not only would that be a very specific Force power, but we see him put what I would assume is an encryption chip. So it's hardware. Hardware triggered by love? Trust? Friendship? Fuck you. Fuck off. Listen, this is in no way to undermine the importance of BD1 or any droid for that matter. We as human beings can in fact get pathologically attached to non-existing things, material things, and even figments of our own imaginations. I love BD1. I got emotionally attached to him very early on, and every time he was in any sort of danger or not on my back, I got legitimately scared. However, I was always fully aware that he will never be able to do the same thing for me. In other words, what I'm saying, if my laptop suddenly blacked out and only a few files were on it, no matter how much I hug it, I ain't getting those files back. This type of shit goes up to criminal levels in the movie Solo. L337. I won't say too much because I do plan on making a series on all the movies, but this little metal cunt actually fights for robot rights. Fucking hell. And who's to blame? Kathleen Kennedy, a dangerously insane human being. I am not saying that these themes cannot be explored, let alone done well, but it's in the wrong fucking game, the wrong series. Star Wars was never about can a droid feel love. For fuck's sake, they get blasted left and right and nobody gives a shit. I mean, I would. If BD1 died, I honestly consider quitting the game, but my feelings towards BD are not the point. It's BD's feelings towards me, or Cal for that matter. How? Why? It's just weird and contrived. My goodness, that was a long rant. Anyways, back to the thing. We go back to the table and get to choose our lightsaber color, which of course for me is pink. Wait, what? Unless you're Samuel L. Jackson, you don't get to decide. The color of the lightsaber depends on your personality. Or, if you're a Sith, which in that case it's almost always red, but that's because of the way they construct their lightsabers, which is a completely different affair. If this was a roleplay mechanic, depending on your actions, your color would change. That would be cool, but it's not that kind of game. If they wanted to give you more color options, just put a damn RGB slider in there. Make a hue saturation layer, colorize that son of a bitch, and let us make whatever color we want, if it doesn't matter. Yes, I know, another nitpick, but worth mentioning, I would think. The cool thing is that now you effectively have two lightsabers since you use two broken pieces of a crystal. A nice touch is that now your throw animation changes and you have a split saber combo, but dual wielding is still not a thing. That was the first thing that came to mind, but I guess since this game doesn't use left and right hand attack buttons, just the one, it would have been a little retarded giving you the option for that this late in the game. I also expected my lightsaber, or lightsabers in this case, to be either faulty of some kind or not as powerful since it uses two pieces of a single broken kyber crystal instead of two whole ones, but no, it's the same shit. So now that we have been made stronger by the power of pink, we go back to Dathomir to try and open the tomb door. This is a really good scene showing us how Cal has grown in this short time. finally being able to face his fears and his past, dealing with the death of his master and coming to the realization that it was not his fault.
Master.
You were wrong to return here unarmed.
Not unarmed.
You think that lightsaber proves you a Jedi?
No. Facing you. Memories that have haunted me since Braca. I won't run from them anymore.
Then let us see what manner of death your courage brings. Come to me. Press power, the answer.
Master. I will never forget. The loss has become a part of me. I will honor your teaching and your sacrifice.
Remember, persistence reveals the path.
It gets to the point right away, no filler, and the pacing is correct. Well done. Then we get to my favorite scene in this entire game, in which I really don't have enough praise to give to the animators and especially to the actors, Tina Ivlev mostly. The expression on Medin's face, tone of her voice, body movement, everything feels extremely natural and precise.
You chose to return. Brave, but not wise.
Maybe. Marin, right? I'm Cal Kestis. What you were told about the Jedi was not true.
So you say. Cal. Malikos said many things too.
Terran Malikos might have been part of my order, but what he is now, I have no idea. All I do know is having a lightsaber isn't what makes you a Jedi.
Then what does?
We were peacekeepers. We were betrayed by those we protected. Hunted down by the Empire. I might be one of the last of my kind.
I was only a child when they attacked. An armored warrior brandishing this descended upon us and cut down my people, my sisters, until I was left alone with the dead. Then Malikos came and promised me revenge if I shared our secrets with him in return.
I know what it's like to lose everything. And Malikos was wrong to use that against you. We don't have to be enemies.
You will need this.
There she goes again.
I'll be watching.
Let's get out of here.
I said it before, and I will say it again. Tina Ivlev, Medin, is my favorite part of this game, and she is criminally underused. She is above everyone else performance-wise, and if there is ever a live-action Star Wars movies where Medin is involved, and if they do not get her for the performance, I swear to God I will have a shit fit. Approaching Gandalf the Naked gives us another cutscene. The fight with Malikos is your pretty standard affair, which just boils down to you learning the correct timing for the parries, but still entertaining enough. The power of boners prevails over raw strength, and we finally find our Astrium, and we get a little nice touchy-feely scene with Medin.
It is real.
Marin, this could be the key to the next generation of Jedi.
I'm happy for you. And your Jedi. But nothing can bring back my people.
After the purge, I was alone for a long time. In hiding, I was scared that they'd find out who I was or what I was.
What changed?
A very good friend of mine told me to go out and find my place in the galaxy.
And you listened?
Well, no. But life has this funny way of forcing you on the path forward anyway. Now here I am. Or at least expected.
A path forward. I will join you.
You will?
I've spent years waiting for a chance to avenge my sisters. I'm finished waiting. I wish to fight by your side. Night Sisters and Jedi do not travel together, but survivors. We adapt.
Yeah. Yeah, I guess we do. What do you think, BD? I agree. My crew, they might take a little bit of convincing, though.
Then we'll convince them.
Now that we made friends with Merrin, and maybe even a little bit of a spark blossomed there, why the hell do all the Night Sister zombies and the Night Brothers attack you on sight? I kinda get behind the brothers since they followed Malicos, but Merrin raised all the sisters, and they stay there hostile towards you. Wouldn't it make more sense if she would to tell them to go away and talk to the brothers and say that we're good now? No? Okay. We introduce our baby girl to our team and we figure out what we're gonna do next.
See her, Grease? This is Marin.
She's a witch, isn't she?
A Night Sister. Your fear is unnecessary.
I couldn't have gotten the Astrium without her. We fought Malicos together. I trust her.
And we trust you. You will have to earn it.
Okay, fine. Grab some seat. Don't try anything funny.
Welcome aboard.
They like you.
I don't know what you're saying.
You think it'll work?
It worked for Cordova.
You can make it work.
She's right.
Oh, hey, is anybody hungry? I was thinking of whipping up some scaz steaks. I'm sorry, am I interrupting?
No, Captain. And we couldn't have gotten this far without you.
Oh, well,
It's true, Grease.
thank you. Hey, I hope you get in there and you find that hollow thing.
Holocron.
Are you sure it's something you should find?
What do you mean?
The children on that list. If you take them from their homes to train as Jedi, won't they be hunted like you?
It has to be kept out of the hands of the Empire.
It'll help us put an end to the Empire.
Oh, hey, change of plans, we're arriving.
Oh, Grease.
Yeah?
I take my steak rare.
Huh? Okay, now we're talking.
Back to Bogano we go to explore the vault once again, but this time armed with our Astrium. This void-like scene is done really well. It's not confusing, the pacing is good, you understand the struggles presented and it has a point, which is in stark contrast to the scene that is no doubt inspired from. The one from The Last Jedi when Rey went to the mirror thing in the dark side part of the island. That scene was horrendous, made no sense whatsoever, and the point of it was completely absent. The point was to show the what if you're not ready, what if you fail scenario, and the punching at the end symbolizes the readiness, something severely lacking from the last bowel movement. Just as we are about to grab our main objective, Trilla pops in for a visit and brute forces it out of our hands, and due to Cal's very rare ability to vividly see images by sensing force echoes from objects, we get this very vivid and honestly terrifying sequence of events.
Don't go. We need to stick together.
No. I'm going to lure them away, and then I'm going to circle back. Stay with the younglings, Trilla. May the Force be with you.
Master, don't leave us!
Trilla, what's going to happen?
It's okay. It's okay.
No. No.
No!
You see how the first-person perspective really helps sell the effect here. Once we exit the tomb, we see Bogano has been quote-unquote invaded by the Empire, and we fight our way back to our ship. We tell Cere that we made an oopsie-poopsie, and Trilla is in the possession of the holocron. She tells us where we need to go, and then performs a knighting ceremony, which looks extremely dangerous with lightsabers. Seriously, just a slight slip, and the head goes clean off. But anyways, we're off to Nur, where the Inquisitor Fortress is. Upon arriving there, Meren uses her sexy green magic to hide our ship, and off we go for a swim. I dead fucking hate this section. Not because it's done badly, no, it's actually a really nice location. I just have a huge problem with open water. Ever since I was a kid, deep water scared the shit out of me. But I'm glad they included it because I don't get to experience that kind of emotion or feeling, and it's nice to see that I can still feel things. We have some combat, platforming, and puzzles to solve here. This level is not a big test of all the abilities you've learned through the game. It doesn't mean it's a bad thing, but it would be a nice comes full circle moment. So the path to the final boss is a little lacking, but still memorable. As soon as I entered the room, the design heavily reminded me of a certain scene in Mass Effect 3. And thank baby Jesus it was just by design and not the actual pain in my stomach that game gave me. Trilla then decided to mimic the jump scare spiders and appears out of thin air, and then something beautiful happens. The fight just starts. There's no mumbo jumbo exposition, no kumbaya about the Force and the join me and we will rule the galaxy crap. We've seen her multiple times by now, and she told us all her motives and did all her exposition, so this is very well done. The fight itself, on the other hand, is a bit lacking. For being the last boss of the game, doesn't really do anything interesting, but it still uses all the core game mechanics right, and altogether it is greater than the sum of its parts. However, what is really interesting is what happens after the fight. Let's take a look.
Cal!
I have the holocron.
I need to do this. It's over, Trilla.
Nothing is ever truly over.
This fight is over. I know the darkness that is eating you up inside, and every day we choose to either feed it or fight it.
It's too late, sir.
No, it's not. I know the choices that I made took all your choices away, and I have failed you, Trilla. I failed you. And I am so very sorry.
I've carried so much hate for you.
That doesn't look good.
It isn't. It's him.
You have failed me, Inquisitor.
Avenge us!
Cal!
Run! No!
You would be wise to surrender.
Yeah. Probably.
Oh yes, Darth Bastard Vader is in this game. I have a lot to say about this section. First of all, he's in here for just the right amount of time. The game doesn't milk him in any way. There's no fan service here, or at least it doesn't feel fan servicey. He's voiced by Scott Lawrence, who does a pretty decent enough job sounding like you'd expect him to sound. When it first transitioned from cutscene to gameplay and I saw that you can target him, I immediately went, oh no, 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 they're not gonna go Force Unleashed route and have you kick his ass and then do whatever. But thankfully I was very wrong. He beats the shit out of you. Even when Seer magically comes back after being thrown into the abyss, he is ruthless. They animated him perfectly, from how he fights to how he walks, even to how he goddamn kneels. Every slight body movement is done correctly and is in line with what we know from Vader. The developers really knew what they were doing with this one, and they shown restraint in this final sequence before the ending cutscene. It could have been so easy having you fight him and somehow defeat him and then he waddles away with like a sliver of life left, but they knew that would undermine the character, so they rightfully made you run away from an unstoppable force. Well done. Seriously, well done on this one. The problem though, sadly, as with almost everything, every time they do something amazing, they have to fuck it up. How did Seer survive? I mean, okay, it doesn't have to, not every single little tiny detail has to be shown or explained, but she was thrown off the thing into nothing. And how did she come back? Just a little bit of a nod like, oh yeah, I hanged on the ledge or whatever. It doesn't even have to be specifically on screen. It could have been like peripheral view or whatever. It's just, it doesn't work. Fine, you want to keep certain characters for sequels, or you don't want to kill off a character you worked hard on or that is important to the story, but don't give them plot armor. This is exactly what it is. It's just plain plot armor. It's amazing how Trilla died like she was nothing. She was a huge part of the game and Vader just slashes her out of existence. That was great. That was a nice scene of death, a nice scene of loss for Seer especially, because she was her Padawan. But this type of plot armor really is redundant and stupid, and they could have made it completely different. They could have made it so that they both escaped. But this was just retarded. I'm sorry, it's so fucking stupid. The story ends with our gang deciding how they're going to handle the content inside the holocron, at which point Cal decides it will be best if it was entrusted to the Force and splits it in half with this pink lightsaber. The story on its own was fairly good. They kept it simple and non-destructive to already established lore, though I have to admit it was kind of short. And the game focused more on exploration and being a collectathon rather than storytelling. It didn't take it too far, so altogether it was an enjoyable experience. For my closing section, I would like to talk about a few things that I didn't know where to put in. The controller vibrates way too often, especially in situations you least expect it to. Someone walks in a cutscene, it vibrates. Cal wipes off dirt from a surface, it vibrates. I can see how it can be beneficial on those cold, lonely nights, but otherwise it's just too excessive. The game does let you continue after the end credits, but it's a little dumb. It gives you a message on screen that you're being taken back before the final section, but it's not replayable. So in the save file world, you completed that mission, but in the game world, you didn't. So you can't really talk to anyone about what just happened. You can't ask Seer how she feels about Trilla dying, who the fuck that big guy in the helmet was, nothing. Just go back and collect more colors for your outfit. That was really disappointing. Returning to Ilum after the ending will make the planet look eerily similar to Starkiller Base. I haven't found any concrete proof that it is, but the surface and the trenches sure do look like it. There are nods to the movies with certain colors of your poncho, mainly the camel one and the orange one, and the BD1 recolor which puts him in purple and green. To me, at least, it's obviously an Easter egg or a nod to Cameron Monaghan playing the Joker in Gotham, with purple and green always being the major colors in the Joker's design. Star Wars Jedi Fallen Order is not only a step in the right direction for EA's reputation, but for Star Wars as a franchise. It was brought back from the mainstream grave multiple times only to be shat on by corporate and left to rot in the rain. But this is the first time that it's been given some life. Due to its extremely good reception, I have no doubt that we'll be getting a sequel. And please, for the love of crap, don't screw it up. That's Disney's job. For the time being, that is all I have to say on this particular topic. Thank you so much for tuning in. Catch you later.
16 times the detail